Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on a Saturday. Um, I think we have participants from Rawalpindi mostly. If anyone is from Afghanistan, please let us know because students from Afghanistan, they are also going to join in remotely. So I think without waiting more, let's start the conversation. Um, would anyone from Rawalpindi want to go ahead and give a summary of the book and then we can take the conversation ahead?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, Maria.
So, I found this book to be quite enlightening about real life in Afghanistan. It's about a man who owns a bookstore where he makes a good living for his family. First of all, the story isn't all roses and sunshine. The dark secret of his family is the horrible mistreatment of the women in his family. This book also tells about the history of the country and various rulers. Their life was more free before the Taliban, and especially the women.
Thank you so much, Maria. Would anyone else from Rawalpindi want to add more into this? Anyone else from Rawalpindi? All right, let's move to our participants in Afghanistan. Alina, would anyone from your side want to come up and give a summary of the book or maybe share their ideas, what they thought about the book?
Okay, Mariam is going to talk about the book of booksellers of Rawalpindi. Mariam. Okay, hello. How are you doing? This is Maria Rajani. And this book was about something in Afghanistan about a man that he will take second wife, and he's really old, and he wanna get a wife that she's young and she's really small, and he went to proposal, and because the family of daughter gave her their daughter because of the money and because of the money of this man, and as I think it's not good. Lots of people give their daughter because of money. So in Afghanistan especially, so it's not good. As I think this is my mind, this is my idea about this book.
Thank you so much, Maria. Would you like to share some thoughts about some characters that are very prevalent in the book, like the character of Sultan? What did you think about that man? Yeah.
Yes, Sultan Khan. As few minutes ago, I told you that he went for proposal of a girl, a very small girl, and he wanna get her. It means as a wife. And the Sultan Khan is really old person and really so he wanna get this girl that is it's really young, and the family of daughter gave this daughter because of the Sultan Khan's money. The Sultan Khan is really a rich person, so the family of daughter gave their daughter uh, because of the Sultan Khan's money. So it's not good. Lots of people give their daughter because of money, that their daughter is too much young, and give their daughter, and it's not good. As you know, a young, a very small girl can't afford a family, afford a house. So it's not good, as I think.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mariam, for your thoughts. I felt the same as well, because the way Sultan's character was portrayed, that he is the kind of man who really thinks about the progress of his country, and he is trying his best to preserve his country's history by saving the books and you know guarding the treasure. But um, in a contrast, he's a very different man when it comes to his household. So I found his character to be very contradictory, that when it comes to being in his house, he is very, controlling, and he is trying, but he gets away with it as well, that he is trying to control the lives of each family member. So would anyone from Rawalpindi felt the same way and would like to share their thoughts on the character of Sultan?
Yes, Hurmat, you're very right. There's a pretty vast contradiction between his character. On one place, he's inside the jail where he is given a punishment and he bribes the guards. He gets the book inside his jail cell. He reads the books. He reads about Masnavi and every Persian poet and literacy. He even hides the books from the Taliban and the fundamentalists, even in the attics in the Kabul, all around. But when it comes to his household, he just gets his way. He gets his way through money, he gets his way through blackmailing people, through force. He just gets whatever he wants. And that is something like I feel that women, not only in Afghanistan, but also all around the world somewhere, they do get this thing that men have the power over all the house. They are the ruling power, they can make all the decisions. The women have no voice in their decisions.
Yeah. Any student from your side would like to share their thoughts on this?
From Parwan, maybe for some students, it is the first experience of using from Zoom meeting. Some of them are asking me frequently that how can I, for example, go through the link and some other questions. And yes, I am solving their problems and I just teaching the using of the using the Zoom. It is better that we have one more students from your side to sharing in order to share their ideas about the booksellers of Kabul. And after that, the students are going to share.
All right, perfect. Ms. Suratullain, please ask any of your students to share more of their ideas about the book.
Okay, I'll let them know. Raimeen, why don't you please share some points about the book? Raimeen and Amna.
Assalamu alaikum. The book Seller of Kabul is a really interesting and lovely book. The book, I like this. It was really interesting to read about the history, culture, and traditions of Afghanistan, and especially about the biography of Sultan's family. How he risked his own life to preserve the history and culture of Afghanistan, and didn't give up on those books. He did not let the history of Afghanistan die. Especially, what I really liked about the book was even though the Taliban's burned the books owned by Sultan mercilessly many times, but still he didn't give up on those books and he tried to preserve them. And what made me developed me to read this the interest in the book was how the writer Asne Sirstad wrote it. It was a very uh, kind and a beautiful gesture. It was written very beautifully, and it was a really lovely and amazing book.
All right, thank you so much, Ishmael. As Ishmael pointed this out, that it was written by someone who was not Afghani, and even in the introduction of the book, you would have read that Esne Serstad, she spent a couple of months with this person who was actually a bookseller in Kabul, and she observed their lives, and she had the liberty to even be around men and also be around women. So she was able to see the how the lifestyle of both the genders. So when you will progress more into this project and you will read books about Afghanistan written by an Afghani as well, you will see, you will be able to compare how when a local writes a book and how they are representing their culture, and when a foreign person writes a book about someone else's culture, how they are writing it. So I found what I really understood, that Esne Sirstar, she is writing it from a foreign perspective. Uh, did anyone else from you guys felt it to be like that? No, there were maybe some inaccuracies, or maybe I would really like Afghanistan to weigh in this if they found that there were some inaccuracies, or maybe some things could have been portrayed in some other manner. Afghanistan, would you please be able to answer this question?
Did anyone answer this first? Can you repeat again?
Yeah, so basically, I was saying that if Esne Sestat, she's a foreign writer. She came to Afghanistan and she lived with this man and his family in Kabul for a couple of months, and she observed the lifestyles, and then she wrote this book about them. So did you feel like that she wasn't able to represent the culture and traditions of Afghanistan in not so good way, or maybe there were some inaccuracies? Did you feel anything like that? Especially since it was coming from a foreign person's perspective. If it was written by an Afghan, maybe there would have been some tone could have been changed, or something was not written correctly. Did you feel anything like that?
Guys, did you do answer this question? Okay. And they are not going to answer this question, but they have something to share with you.
Yeah, sure,
And,
please go ahead.
Please share your understanding of the book.
Hello, good morning. This is Hasna Sharifi from University Sharifah. From this book that I studied, it was about a man that he was lived in Kabul, and also this book that she wasn't from Afghanistan, but she lived for some months with them, and she had wrote the story of his life, that how he became a boxer and what was he in the past, and also about his family, about the events that he passed and the difficulties that he passed in his life, and how he became boxer, and how he became a good person and successful person in his life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have another question for both our participants in Afghanistan and in Pakistan, that in this book it was really stressed upon how much books are important in preserving a country's culture, a nation's culture. And when an invader comes in, all they try to do is wipe out the history of a country, of a nation, of a culture. Would you like to shed some light on this? How much books and history is important to be preserved in order to build a nation?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mahnoor Fatma and I'm from Grammar School Rawalpindi from Pakistan. The thing that you are sharing with us, it is really true that I have read in this book that all the invaders who came to Afghanistan, they have tried to wipe out the history, they have tried to destroy the books, the heritage of Afghanistan, and I'm really shocked by this. And I have understood that people try to do that because they want to wipe out the history, so that the new generations, they can't learn about the history, they can't learn where they belong, and therefore when they do not know that, then they cannot proceed forward, they cannot be successful. Therefore we have to have a link with our past to go forward, to go to a better future. So therefore I also have this question from my Afghani friends, that do their history is still preserved, like they have their heritage now, or is it all destroyed, or do they have some things preserved for them? And they should definitely share it with us, because we do not know a lot about the history of Afghanistan. Like we were reading, I was reading in this book, there were two kind of invaders, some were Tajikis, some were Mujahideens and different. So I want to know a lot about them.
Yeah, so the story is the same. When invaders enter a country, what they want to do, or all they want to do is, wipe out the history, because the generations coming after, or the generations down the road, should forget what their past was, and about their cultures. So they do it basically to apply a new style. I mean, to develop a new style, or generate a new style for the future generation, and to make them forget what they had in the past. Yes, so often it has happened in Afghanistan that invaders have entered, but Afghans have still been able to preserve their history and their culture. Like the If you visit the Museum of Kabul, they have many things stored in there, like from around about 3,000 years. So the history is still preserved. And I also read a book about this, National Geographic book it was. So it talks about an Afghan hero who saved the paintings, the portraits he had painted and other painters had painted. So he just got a cover for it. I mean, so if the terrorists see that, they shouldn't destroy it, because if they would see that, they would think that this is just out of paper and nothing else. So when they went out of Afghanistan, so he I don't know what he did, but he brought the pictures back. So this is how he did it. So still, we will be working. I mean, the people in the Museum of Kabul are working on this to preserve every single thing.
Oh, that's amazing to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that. I can see that more of your participants have joined in. Alina, would you please ask them to come forward and share their thoughts about the book?
Sure. Is there anyone else to share their ideas? Okay, I just want from Lina to stand here and share their perspective about the book.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Hakimi from Parwan province. This book was so an interesting book for me, and it had some interesting history too. So I want to share just from the beginning of this story that it was about the writer of this book. When he lived in a foreign country, when he arrived in Kabul province, he went to in a bookseller to buy a book. When he went there, when she went there, she talked with the bookseller, and she wanted that hear the story of his. disruption, and she told her story was so interesting for the writer, and she asked her to say the story for she and make it a story and write it up in a book. One day she invite her for a dinner. When they come there, they decide to make a story. Fortunately, they caught and they write the story of the bookseller, and it was so interesting.
Thank you so much for your lovely thoughts. Since we are talking about books and preserving history and heritage, I have a question for you guys that we have talked about why they do it and why do such invaders when they come in and why they do it. So I have a question here in my mind that destruction of history, destruction of heritage by some tyrannical regime or some invader, what kind of impact, what kind of negative impact it has on the country, on the nation? What do you guys think about that?
Alaikum. We need history and culture to learn from our mistakes. From our past, we learn what mistakes we have made and what we have to do or find a solution to learn from these mistakes. If we don't have our culture, history, that then we can't judge which mistakes we have made before, and now we don't have to make them. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ishmael. Anyone else who would like to answer this question? Sana, would you like to add in your thoughts?
Yeah, I would just like to say that, you know, one of the things about when there is an upheaval, there is an invasion of any land, and when that history and the culture of a people is destroyed, what happens is there is a tabula rasa, right? So, you know, you have this whole land where you can, you know, you can plow anything in. You can create a mindset through the narrative that you are going to write from the position of power. So, you know, if a nation has forgotten its history, if a nation has forgotten its culture, if it has been wiped out, you can shape the minds of the next generation. And it often happens, it has happened previously in history as well, and we are still seeing similar kind of similar kind of processes in play. For example, ISIS wiping out the history in Syria, or or for example, when we talk about even the local context, when you read about Taliban wiping out the history of Buddhism in, for example, KPK, and destroying statues or heritage sites and stuff like that. So we are seeing it through our own eyes as well. And, this process of wiping out history actually allows them to change the mindsets of young generation as well. I think it's really important that we hold dear our traditions and our culture and try to preserve them in any possible way. We have to take, simple steps, just like, for example, we are having this book club, we are talking about these things, but what else can we do? I'm wondering about, what is the next step? We try to talk about these things, but, for the preservation of history, a single person like me or you, or the children that, or the participants that are joining today, what steps can we take? I just wanted to put this out there and, just get some thoughts running between the participants of the book club today. So just a question, what can we do as a single person for the preservation of our history so that, the next generation can take pride in its own nation and its own traditions?
Anyone from Parwan would like to start first to answer this question?
Yes, so one way that I would like to share is through teaching it and conveying the message of historical places and the lessons from the history. You know what the history is for? The history is for to learn from the past mistakes of the ancestors and try new ways to solve problems. So not going out of this margin, I was talking about conveying the message. Like if I have something about the past, about history, that I would like to that I want the upcoming generation to learn or to remember is that I should tell them. And if it just it is a process. So the future generation is going to tell the history, and they're going to narrate the stories like this. But also we may also write books to keep it in secure places. So I think these are some ways to preserve history.
I just wanted to add something as well. So, Pakistan has a tradition, oral tradition. It has played a pivotal role in the preservation of the culture and history of, especially when it comes to the local, ethnic groups or tribes. I was wondering if Afghanistan too has an oral tradition and what kind of significance it has in the nation building of Afghanistan or in the preservation of tribal traditions in Afghanistan. So just a question for Parwan. Would you like to answer that? Thank you.
If it's okay, please shorter repeat your question again.
Yeah, sure. So I'm just wondering if Afghanistan has oral tradition as well. So if there are stories, folk tales, folklore that exist in Afghanistan and have played an important role in the preservation of Afghani culture and tradition.
Please share your idea. It is about the old tradition that making our culture. The traditions that right now it is part of our culture. Do we have? We have a lot.
If you have ideas, share that because we don't have.
Okay. I just wanna the students. I think maybe belong to this question. Nothing coming to their minds. No problem. I'm just sharing some of my ideas about this. And we have such kind of traditions in Afghanistan. We have a lot. And we can say that one of those traditions that today it is part of our culture in Afghanistan is that is all about, for example, our Islamic rules. That today we have them and we are doing them in all part of our life. We have rules and regulations in Islam, and that most of us are respecting them, and some of us are just for example, maybe some other telling bad about that Islamic rules and that rules and regulations, and we are that making us upset, and we really respect for them, and we are doing them in all part of our life, because Islam is a religion full of the regulations in every part of the life. It has something, and it has something to, for example, we can say some procedures and some rules. And I think this is the biggest thing that we should mention, and that is worth mentioning. Thank you.
I would just like to add on this point which Sana brought up, which is a very wonderful point. She first asked what we can do to preserve oral history, and then she pointed out that how folk tales and literature plays a part into it. Just like to add on the fact that rightly so, that literature has a very big part in preserving history, because over generations, so we have seen histories being destroyed multiple times over generation. The Crusaders did it. Then there were there were the Mongolians, the Mongolian Crusades that wiped out almost all the history that we have in the 13th century, because they were not really preserving any history over there. And then we see over the time, in our contemporary time, we have seen the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan, and even like she put in ISIS right now, what's happening in Syria, the destruction of history and all. But literature in itself is something that passes on. It's something that cannot be manipulated, because it's already been spread so easily that it preserves an essence of history in itself. But what we can do as individuals is to look at it from a multi-dimensional perspective, because like folk tales that we have written by our folk artists, like in Sindh we have a lot of folk tales by Shah Abdul Latif Bhai and all these people. Now they write about love, and they write about religion, and they write about society, but there's in their writing there's also a political dynamics to it, which we often don't really cover up. When the British came into India, and they use literature and they use education to somehow subdue the growth of the Indian population in the country, and that kind of really stopped us from thinking in our own dialects, in our own language. So the as English, as we have gone towards other languages to understand how history happened, we somehow lose our own dialect and our own literature in that sense. So it's very important for all of our participants to understand that in order to preserve history, in order to understand history, literature plays a very pivotal role and a very important role. And not just read literature from just a reading perspective, and from just covering the ideas and learning about the stories, but also look into the political dynamics of why the thing were written. For example, if we talk about Sasi Panno, or we talk about Leila Majnu, now they're talking about some very, very hard issues. They're talking about women's rights, they're talking about freedom of marrying anyone they want to marry, crossing the tribal lines that have been drawn about. Now there's a political dynamics to it, which brings about how things happen. Similarly, in subcontinent, there are writers such as Miraji, who at the time when there are a lot of English influence coming in the subcontinent, and a lot of writings being translated in English, and when Persian is being translated in English, the idea and the context is somehow being lost. But Miraji at that point writes about these things from a political dynamics, and explains how it is impacting on the heritage and what's going to happen in the future generation. So that is this aspect that we don't see. There's a very famous Sufi tale about Mansur bin Hilal, who goes around and he talks about religion and how unity happens in religion. Now we have all heard that story, I'm assuming, but we don't really understand the political dynamics of the king who wanted to preserve his throne and was in fear that this kind of thought would provoke a revolution, and that's why he got him killed and assassinated. So in all, we should look at literature with a historical perspective always, because literature can never be written without a historical perspective. If we have covered all the books that we have covered in the sessions up till now, we talked about the Kite Runner, Khalid Hosseini, and we talked about all these other books, but there was a political aspect to it. There was the Soviet war. Even in the books like Malala or Iqbal, there was dynamics of political influence promoting this entire situation, letting child labor happen, letting women not go to schools. Now, so looking from a political perspective, looking from a historical perspective, we get a we broaden our horizon, and we're able to see it from a different perspective. Now, when we move forward, now when you have kids and when we have our future generation, we can pass on that tradition, because we have looked at it from a very multi-dimensional perspective. So that is a very key thing that all the participants should understand.
Thank you so much, Alicia. And just adding on to Alicia's thoughts and to his points, the way that I was talking about before, that when a foreign author writes about your nation, your country, your culture, that person is writing from an outsider's perspective. So when you move when you'll read more books into this project, you'll read like Alicia mentioned, that you'll read books written by Khalid Hosseini. You will read a book about Afghanistan by Jamil Jan Kochai, who is also an Afghan. You'll see uh, so far all the books that I've read, I can very easily, and I'm very happy that I can compare how Esne Serstad wrote about the Afghan culture and how Khalid Hosseini and how Jamil Jan Kochai are writing about Afghan culture. So what I'm trying to say is it's really, really important for someone from your own country to write about your own culture, because of course you know why these things are happening, and you are understanding, and you have been living there for years and years, and you know why this is happening and how it is impacting us. If someone who comes from abroad and they live with you for like a couple of months, they can't really portray what you are actually going through. So yeah, I would really encourage all of you to actually read these books from this perspective as well, and encourage you to write about your problems, your traditions, and your culture as well, so that if someone comes up to you and asks you, you can actually recommend them that, oh yes, this is this South Asian writer, or this is this Afghan writer who actually writes correctly about us, and this is how the things should be portrayed. I hope I've been able to relay my thoughts properly. Would anyone from Rawalpindi or from Afghanistan like to add into it, if they felt anything like that while reading this book, or any other book that you read throughout this project so far?
Assalamualaikum. My name is Laila Salman and I'm from Grammar School Rawalpindi. And I'd like to add on the part where you mentioned about the culture and how a person writing from outside of Afghanistan defines the culture and tradition of Afghanistan. When Asne Sirsted came over to Sultan Khan's place and wanted to live there to write a book, she had to go outside to look over all the traditions and culture, how they used to live and how they used to attend stuff and how women used to go out. So she herself, being a woman, had to wear a burqa and go out. So her perspective on wearing a burqa was very different, and she even liked it, and yet she did not. She was very she was feeling very weird wearing a burqa at first, but then she felt good because she was not getting any extra attention on wearing Western clothes and going out like that. So she was happy about that, but she was feeling very awkward as well, as she hadn't worn burqa ever in her life. And it cinches on the head, so she felt headaches and stuff, and she used to feel relieved when she used to come back. Um, she felt like women were engaged in this thing and were forced to wear it, while women, it was their own will to wear it. They aren't forced. So that's a perspective I'd like to share.
That's a very great point that you brought up. I am really happy that you brought this point up, that how the narrative changes and the context changes when the other person is writing it. And like you said, that maybe if you ask an Afghani woman, or if you ask even a Pakistani woman, when she wears burqa, like I have a lot of friends who wear burqa and they wear the whole nikah, and they are very comfortable with it. I mean, I, for a person, I don't have anybody in my family wearing it. So the first friend that I had, a good friend that I had, who I can ask about this very freely, and I did ask, she was like, I'm very comfortable. It gives me a sense of pride when I wear this burqa. And I don't really feel like I'm being curtailed, I'm being held down and bounded by something. Or more than that, I feel liberated. Because when I wear a burqa, I feel like now I can roam around the society without all the other. So for her, it was a very different thing for how I perceived it as an outsider, because I really didn't have anybody wearing a burqa in my own family. So for me, it was like I was going from a perspective, oh, they have to wear burqa maybe. And for that girl, my friend Aksa, it was just perfectly fine, and she was very happy, and more than that, she was proud about wearing it. So that is a very important, coming to the same point that we were talking about, that how the context and the narrative changes when a second person is writing about that culture. And Hurmat very, very much rightly so said that it is very important that for us individuals to write about our own cultures and write about our own history, so that our narrative can be put forward and our narrative can go forward. If we as Pakistanis or we as Afghanistani don't talk about the issues that we see in our society, and we don't talk about in the light that we as Pakistanis or Afghanis see it, then that narrative would never come across. It would always be the third person, a European or a Westerner, coming and telling us how this should happen, how they are feeling, but our feeling would never come across. So in this note, I would also like to ask all the individuals that after having these 3 sessions, after reading these books, have anybody had the urge to write? Not write a book. I'm not asking to write a book, write a poetry or anything, just in essence to write. How have you understood the importance of writing, and how have you understood the importance of getting across your own narrative, like I said? So anybody from Afghanistan, anybody from Pakistan who has thought about writing in a new dimension after coming in our book clubs?
As Sir said, I have read all books, and they all were nice. They all were different from each other, and I have noticed that in 2 books, I have noticed that they have just point out the culture and different culture. Cultures, histories. These 2 things are main and really important for a country or for a if a student reads a book, he just first he notes that the heroic actions of his own country, and then he just noticed 2 things mainly: heroic actions and positive actions from their own country. If there are some negative action, they can realize the difference between the good and bad. They can realize the negative and positive, and they can know that what have their country done in history. So history is important thing, and all the books that I have read, they were interesting, but this one was little bit more because this was little bit different, and I think it was a little bit for elders. I know that it's a nice book. I liked it, but many things that I never knew, I just note them. Yeah, that's it.
That's very great. That's very wonderful. Anybody from the other side want to talk about the same question that I brought about? That have they seen writing as a tool of power and as a tool of expression, and how they have has the value of writing gone increased in their mindsets after reading these books?
Yes, sure. I want to add something more. After study these books in 3 sessions, it was very interesting. And also, these books was very fun for me. By studying these books, I really learned a lot of about my culture, and also however with our students understood about the Afghanistan culture. I'm really happy that around this also know about our culture. It was very interesting, and it really encouraged me to study more and more. And also by studying these books, I really realized that we have to make a time for ourselves to study. When it's very important in our life to have study, and by studying such a books, we can get more information about different things. And also, it was very interesting and fun for me by studying this book. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay, as your question was about the, I think that was the influence of reading on your writing skill. That was the main idea in here, that how the reading can help you to develop your grammatical points to writing and such kind of things. I think that how it depends on how much study you have during a day, during a month, and during a week. And how much your reading skills is improved depend on that, your writing is also going to grow up and you will become a very good author. It is not important that you write a book to you have the name of author. It is important that how you write we can say an essay or a topic in a very good way that it is interesting for the people who are reading this.
That
And
is
I really encourage students that approximately 7 minutes a day they should give time for studying, and it can really help them. And in the three sessions that we passed, the three books were really, we can say, effectful and also interesting for them. And three books are were really that those really had the concepts that may help them. And now anyone else to share their ideas depending on the bookseller of Kabul, because a little bit we went far from the book and we just discussed about another things. Miss Marwan.
Hi everyone, this is Wesley. I hope you're all doing great. So one thing I just want to mention about reading book, just 1 year ago I have seen a movie by the name of The Book Thief that it has really impact on me. This is about that girl. I know that lots of people have saw that movie because it's really full of fun and interesting movie. So one thing I just have learned from that girl, Lucy, first of all, he just wanted to learn. So she started just to study lots of books with maths and with I just forget the boy name. So after learning, he just started to write a book. When Max just gave her a book that was written about the I just forget his name. About Hitler, yeah. That the book was about Hitler, so she didn't have the permission to read that book about Hitler. So Max just make the book white and give it to Lucy to just write some things about her own story. So she just started to write her own story about Mac, about his father-in-law and mother-in-law, about all the books she had stolen from the ministry of the we are just she went to she just brought the laundry after washing. It was really amazing for me. And about the culture, one thing I just want to mention about the Afghan people, they're not going to just convey their own culture, like the wedding culture, the clothing culture, the speaking culture, but they're just copying other cultures. I just sometimes wonder that why they're doing like this. I always proud of my own cultures. However, there are some negative points, like the book also mentioned it, like boying and selling the girls. It's nowadays it's not like this to boy or sell the girls when they are groomed. When they are bride, it's not like this. But they're copying another culture. Like when I was in one of the wedding, we just drink. We just that's okay. I didn't want to mention that. We are just going to run a great wedding by copying the another culture, but I think it's wrong. We just have our bright culture that we can obey all of them to, and we can convey for the new generation that they are going to be the leader of Afghanistan. And this is what I wanted to mention, and thank you for listening.
And that is a very great point. When we say that we need to preserve our own culture, and when we say that we need to preserve our history, we also need to take into account that how our influence of external forces are impacting our culture and how they are changing it. In certain aspects, it's very important for culture to evolve, because anything that stays stagnant won't be able to test the time. So in that sense, it's very important to embrace ideas from West, ideas from even the East, from other countries into our culture and to adapt ourselves towards it. It's very, but at the same time, it's also very important to hold to those traditions and hold to those values which are the foundation of our being. So if, like I said, for my friend Aksa, wearing a burqa was a sign of her identity. Now she embraced it as her own. Now that is something that every girl, I should, if she feels like she wants to, she gets liberated by wearing a burqa, she should wear a burqa. In the other sense, if anybody feels like she does not want to wear a burqa, then she should also be. So culture should be able to cater to more than one ideas. If it's not being able to cater to more than one ideas, then it's being a homogeneous, and then that is where the problem arises. Because if we don't have ideas, if we don't have differences in ideas, we won't be able to live in a society in harmony. Because if there is everybody's thinking just one thought, then there won't be any creativity, and if there is no creativity, with time we're going to be falling short. Now that's a very good point that you brought about, and I would just like to add one thing for all my students on the passage of writing, that like the people in Afghanistan rightly put that reading helps writing, and reading helps you to write and to think about things. And so on that note, I would just like to share something of my story, that I don't know if you guys know what dyslexia is, but I suffered from a very high form of dyslexia all my life. And I've flunked all the courses that you ever can. I have failed so many times in academically, I can't really tell you guys. But then I was never really thought of myself as a writer, or as a person who can write, as a person who can even complete sentences. I remember up till my O levels, I was told that I would never be able to write because I just could not finish a sentence. But then now, 5 years, 10 years later, I have written like 4 publications, one book. So I mean, I'm just giving you the idea that whenever I used to teach English to students, I would always tell them one thing, and I would tell you guys this thing, that an idea is 1,000 words in a making. So don't really go for the words, go for the idea. Once you have the idea, once you believe in that idea, the words would come themselves. You will find them yourself. You will find them in your surrounding. You will see how the other person is sharing something, and you will try to use that. So always just go for the idea. Don't limit your ideas to your words. Very often we do that. Very often when we cannot express something in words, we don't really dwell on that idea. But that is the biggest fatal mistake that we make. Just think about things. You don't really have to make sense. It's your mind, it's your being. You can think about anything. You can think about a horse with a with uh with the horn on it, and then it becomes a unicorn. So I mean, it's just your ideas that you need to think about. Don't think about the words, don't think about the grammar. That will come as you start thinking more and more, because once you start thinking more and more, your inner drive to formulate those ideas would drive you to a point where you will learn grammar, where you will learn spelling, where you will learn new words. So that is from my side. uh, Anybody else who would like to add anything, any closing notes that they like to add? We'll be really happy to hear about it.
Miss Navida has been waiting for a long time now. Yeah, please, Miss Navida, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Very good morning to all of you. It had been a very interesting session. Irrespective of what had been discussed in the book, I just wanted to share something different. There was a question raised a little while ago regarding the heritage activities or projects that are being done by the students. So I just wanted to share that Grammar School Rawalpindi has the privilege of working on heritage projects since a long time, and we had been lucky enough to work and develop a handbook based on information about Shalimar Gardens in Lahore, about Texla, and we have also worked on the Rohtas Fort and the Indus Valley civilization based on Mohenjo-daro. And the best thing about these books is that these books are available on the website of UNESCO as well. So though this is not directly related to the book, but since we were talking about heritage and civilizations and cultures, So I thought it important to share it with all my dear students as well. And if required, we can also share the soft copies of these books with all of you. So thank you so much for facilitating our students for this event, and it is going on with all those constraints. Still, we are able to manage them quite successfully. So there has been a lot of hard work from your whole team that is going round to make it a productive session. Thank you so much. This is what all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much.
Ms. Navida, for your thoughts. And
Thank
please do
you.
share the soft copies of those books whenever you
Definitely, I
can. You
will.
can email them to us, and then, or maybe even share them in our WhatsApp group, so
Yeah, definitely.
Alina can share them with our participants in Afghanistan.
Definitely.
So,
Definitely.
Alina, would anyone from your side have some ending remarks to this session so that we can wrap this up?
Yes. Here, our student Walid is interesting to share his idea about the book.
Hello, assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Walid Azizi. I want to share something about the book. Every chapter that you read in the book, every chapter has their interesting story. And most of the story I read is when the communists or the Taliban burned the books in the street, but the Sultan goes back to Pakistan goes back to Pakistan to buy much more school books to Afghanistan, that Afghanistan or students of Afghanistan can improve. And these people in every country is law, because Ahmad Shah Massoud, if you read the story of Afghanistan, that person, he want to defend from Taliban, Afghanistan from Taliban, but the two Arab person or two Arab from other country killed him because the country don't improve because of that. Or when the Taliban destroyed the idol of the Bamiyan, to don't improve the culture, when the idols be still in the Bamiyan, and a lot of tourists come there and see the idol, but the Taliban destroy it because they don't like it. And that's a bad thing or a bad situation for a country to lose their historical idols or something else. Thank you very much. And I want to say for everyone to read more about your country story, the world story, because that's have a really good idea for you. That will give you an idea what should you do in the world, and what should you in your family and your society and another place. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your thoughts.
And if there is time, one more student is going to talk, and two.
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay. There is no limitation.
In the name of Mighty Allah,
I just want to say, the girl who talked about the book Thief, I also really I would really recommend you to read the book as well, because the book is really amazing. Yeah, please, sure, go ahead now. Sorry.
no problem. I want to share something about the book because that book that we wrote this book. It is so amazing. It write about all cultures that the Afghanistan has, and the brave person that he is in the book, and he is a bookseller. And Mrs. Asmi come in Afghanistan because she had a work in Afghanistan, and she came with commandos in Afghanistan, and the Taliban fight with Afghanistan on every word that they don't like in Afghanistan. And that thing that is very amazing for me is about when I this book, I want to write a book that all of things that in our country, in our society is. I want to share them with the people of the world that they saw their life and they see their difference, that how we live, because our life is so have a very more difficulties, and we are faced with so thing bad in our life, and our life is so hard, and I want to share it with all the world, and just this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, and I really wish you good luck in your writing career as well. I really hope that I'll get to read your book soon. So let's wrap the
Maybe we
session
can
up.
have him write something for us in the next session, and we
Oh
can,
yeah, of
we can
course.
go about that. We would really love if you could write something, even a passage or a line or anything, and just we'll start on that as our next session would happen, and we will start from the note that we will note that you're gonna say from provide us with some abstract of your writing. Okay.
And also,
yes, the book club really inspired most of our students to write, and also uh, to save their story, and also to become the future authors as well. Anyone else?
that's amazing. That's
All we're trying to do.
yeah, exactly.
So one thing that I just faced with this while I was reading this book is that there's always sunshine after the cloudy weather. This is what I got from this book, and I have one question that it just made me confused. The writer didn't mention anything about the Sultan's father, or maybe I didn't face it.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe she never asked him about his father, because the book was actually inspired while she was living there, na, with them. So maybe she never asked Sultan about his father. That's why he wasn't. I don't know. We never talked to the writer, so yeah, we don't
Again,
know.
that is something that we will need to dwell on. So the writer only
Yeah,
wrote from one perspective and what he wanted to show. So
exactly.
it was the writer's story. So maybe when we are writing our own story, that just shows that how many things that we can encapsulate and we can choose not to encapsulate. So that is the power of writing. And when you write, it's just your story, it's your narrative that's coming across, and it's very important to get your narrative coming across.
So I would really like to mention here that the next book is going to be The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini. So that book basically, it also talks about all those times during the Soviet war and when all everything changed in Afghanistan. And the bookseller of Kabul more or less talks about the same time, but you will also get to compare how an Afghan author wrote about those times and how a foreign or Western author wrote about those times. So I'm really, really looking forward to the next conversation with you guys. It has always been amazing talking to you and listening to your ideas. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you so much, students from Rawalpindi, for joining us on a Saturday morning. And Parwan, thank you so much for each and every one of you. And I'm really, really looking forward to, I hope that you guys will share more and more ideas with us next time. All right?
Thank you very much from your side too. And our students and I am really proud of having this session. And goodbye. Have a nice day.
Thank you so
Goodbye.
much,
Have a nice day.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Have a nice day. Bye. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Thank you, Parwan. Thank you, Cap.
Thank
Allah
you.
Hafiz.